Moving to our closing session of day one at Next Tech HR Summit 2022, please gear up for a fireside chat on the convergence of digital technologies and skill transformation with Dr. Swati Sarangi, Global Head Learning, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, Chela Pandian Pichai, Head Talent Learning and Organizational Transformation, Biocon Biologics, and Nishray Suri, President Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa, joining us as a session moderator for this one. So stay tuned and keep the outside community updated using the hashtag ETHRNextTech to spread the learnings and experiences from the summit. Without any further ado, please welcome Chela, Dr. Swati, and Nishay.
Welcome to our session on the convergence of digital technologies and skill transformation. The chasm between available and required skills has impacted businesses and economies in several ways, such as the loss of productivity, increased attrition rates, reduced job satisfaction, and a lower GDP. Additionally, the short shelf life of skills and the already strained labor market are giving rise to skill gaps. With a shortage of supply of talent and an aging workforce, the OECD puts the economic loss of the global skill crisis at a staggering $5 trillion. It is also predicted that by 2022, 42% of the core skills required to perform existing jobs are expected to change. The total number of skills required for a single job is increasing at 6.3% annually, and the new skills are fast replacing old ones. 29% of the skills that were present in an average job posting in 2018 will be obsolete by 2022, according to Gartner. As the workforce battles COVID-19, digital enablement has emerged as a cornerstone of crafting a seamless work environment. Digitization has transformed the healthcare industry, and the healthcare sector has become one of the largest sectors, both in terms of revenue and employment. The size of the industry is estimated to reach $372 billion by 2022. Some of the current technology-driven trends in the industry are telehealth, telemedicine, virtual care, increased demand for data, and AI-driven predictive analytics. Now, the future of healthcare lies in closely working with technology, and healthcare workers, employees in the healthcare sector, must embrace these technologies to stay relevant now and in the future. To equip the workforce with the changes brought about by the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution, organizations have shifted their focus back to the fundamental concept of skills as a mean to success. And nearly 59% of HR leaders globally reported that building critical skills and competencies will be their number one priority in 2022. With this introduction, we have divided our session into three acts today. The ROI of reskilling, Act 1. Act 2, Skills DNA, creating a unified language of skills. And Act 3, bridging the skill gap. Let's start with Act 1. Even though reskilling is among the top challenges faced by organizations today, CEOs have not seen estimates from the HR and L&D community to justify the reallocation of large sums of money towards skilling initiatives. Question for you, Swati. What is the business case of tying investments to skilling in your organization? And how do you measure your success?
Thanks, Nishay. I think what we do is that we try and have all skilling initiatives in an outcome-based manner, which is business focused. So we define what is the business ask and then go about plowing back the investments and designing a very bespoke intervention, which is truly tied to our strategy and culture and the specific business ask. Now, just to give you some examples, when we are trying to design any initiative, any learning or skilling initiative, It's always a journey-based approach, which will have elements of exposure, education, and experience put together. We also ensure that there is involvement of our line and business leaders throughout the journey so that there is validation of our inputs along the way. And when it comes to measuring impact and finding out whether it has really succeeded, what we do is we take up thematic journeys. Just to give you an example, suppose a key account management journey, and a bunch of people go through that. We take real live key accounts and find out where they are and how much the needle has moved, whether in terms of new accounts or building, the existing accounts in some ways. All our interventions, whether it is in the R&D space or in the manufacturing or the commercial and sales, as much as possible, we try to articulate a very specific business ask. Also, what we try and do is that we put in action learning projects in case there are no live projects. So the action learning projects is also a kind of proof of the pudding to ensure that they are doing. We ensure that the talent on whom skill investments are being made are also visible to the entire business so that there is fungibility and a steady supply of talent is made available. So the extent to which the supply is available to meet the demand is also a way to ascertain whether the business requirements are being met. So we try and put together this kind of an approach.
So let me follow through with a question. Swati, has the involvement of your business,
Yeah.
this strong connectedness, led to a significant increase in the budget outlay, or is it incremental year on year?
No, it has led to a significant increase. In fact, for every business, for every skilling initiative for business, we always have a business sponsor. And what we do is we, organize review meetings, discussions regarding design, regarding the way that, updates are happening, report outs, etc. So that has led to a significant and rather than not an incremental increase. If we have L&D working in silo, it doesn't really help. So getting it to be a business agenda right from the start till the end is what really pays off. And that has worked and augured well for us at Dr. Reddy's.
Great. Thank you, Swati. Chala, same question to you. I think it's an important one to get your perspective in.
Great. It's good to hear some of the thoughts which Swati was mentioning. And see, to cope with the rapid changes in the real time and developing skills in agile manner becomes an imperative need for our organization, right? So while doing this, we have a blurred vision of skill planning. It will only slow down the process of growth, and which I think organization understands that. The future ready skills are to stay ahead of the curve becomes very important for us to look into. Having said that, what we have done in terms of readiness is to identify those skills which are very important for us to get there, and also a path for what will take us to where we want to get to. And I'll talk a little more about that in the next act of yours. But to specifically answer a question in terms of how the skill building and readiness decided us for our future readiness revolves around there are seven skills which I call it as seven intelligence, or you call it as skills, which I want to talk to you in detail about that. But the success is measured, which is your important question. Readiness to take on disruption seamlessly with emerge successfully. That's one measure which is very important for every organization, and that's what we look into. Because if you're not ready, and then it's going to impact us a lot. Second, what impact you're creating to employees, society, and customers. So how do we measure that? Is again, be it as ESG reports or look at your internal measures, which talks about what's your employees' career growth in terms of how they've coped up with the emerging technologies or emerging needs. And that's another success measure. Then how quickly you're able to adopt, adapt, and abort. What I mean that is, it is not only all the time we look at adopting a new skill, but what about aborting? Are we willing to let go or underplay a skill which we used or we cherished in the past, which may not be relevant to the future? How are we letting it go? So those are some of the measures which is being applied for measuring our success on any kind of adoption of new technologies or new skills.
Great, thank you, Chela. There's some interesting work that Gianni Giacomelli, the Chief Innovation Officer of Genpact, has done. He's been leading a very successful transformation and learning agenda at Genpact through this project called Genome. And Genome is Genpact's corporate learning academy, which is powered by Edcast. 100,000 employees across 25 countries are being reskilled or skilled in 77 skills. And Genpact clocked 9.37 million hours of learning in 2020, which is 2.5 times of what they clocked in 2018. But that, one measure is how much learning is occurring within the organization. But the real challenge has been that how does one translate that into tangible, measurable business impact outcomes? And here are some buckets that he identified within the organization, which is actually now working on a ROI model. Hire versus deploy. The others are reduced employee attrition. How can you actually show that if you're providing better learning environment, more relevant learning, that has an impact on reduced attrition within the organization, lower cost of training, improving the odds of transformational success. And if you have got the right technologies, you have the right skills in place, then you actually increase your success rate as far as transformation is concerned. And last but not the least, impact on revenue and respective bottom line impact. And Genpact observed that from longitudinal data that employee engagement correlates to learning, and Gallup has actually shown that high engagement delivers productivity gains. Okay, so with that, let's move to Act 2. Skills DNA, creating a unified language of skills. Now, McKinsey's research states that most respondents say that skill building, more than hiring, contracting, or redeploying, is the best way to close the gaps that have, and therefore there has been a double down on efforts to reskill or upskill employees since the pandemic began. Skills-based organizations structure their talent strategies around skills and not just job roles, resulting in a more adaptable workforce. Question to you, Chela. How are you building an agile and adaptive model of skilling in your organization? And where do you see the bulk of skilling requirements coming through? You talked about these 7 intelligences, which we'd love to hear more about.
Great. So as I was reflecting on your previous question, right? So the measure is one in terms of the future readiness, and second in terms of how are you impacting the current bottom line. So that's very important, right? So if you want to be ready for future, how successful you are for today. So that becomes another important measure. Having said that, to create that skill ecosystem, and whilst it's super important for all of us to focus on the emerging skills, which is predominantly in the space of technology driven, right? Because there's a lot of disruption which every organization goes through in terms of technology. But one cannot forget the fact that there are various other disruptors, right? We are talking about, leave the pandemic aside, but even otherwise, we are talking about the disruptors because of innovation, right? Innovation is a big disruptors. In a way, I would say even digital disruption is driven by the innovation. Because a lot of innovation happens in the digital space, the technology space. Technology enables innovation, as well as a lot of innovation happens within the technology space when you talk to the experts in the technology industry. So that's one. Second, the multi-generation which is coming into the workforce, that's a huge disruptors which gets sidelined because of various other disruptors people are focusing on. Very important to focus on that aspect as well. So bringing all this together, there are 7 skills I call it as intelligence, which leads to skill. We cannot forget the fact that emotional intelligence is an important aspect, because whilst the computers and artificial intelligence powered robots and everything can come, it cannot master the emotional intelligence part. It is still human beings have an upper hand. and how important is an emotional intelligence as we continue to adopt new technologies. And that's where this becomes an important skill to have. And it also creates a good mental health and well-being, and which is, it's going to be super important for us as we continue to adopt the new disruptors which is coming on our way. Cultural intelligence, which is something which very important in my opinion. If we leave that aside, and however technology adoption an organization has, we got to have this cultural intelligence, which is an important skill to have. That's where diversity, equity, and inclusion becomes super important. Innovation intelligence, which I spoke about, which is an innovation skill or innovation intelligence, which is important to have alternate solutions for or different solutions, because if you take the same approach for the same problem, you'll get the same solution. So how do you want to bring new ideas and create innovation? And that is what will keep you ahead of the competition. And problem solving, again, alternate thinking, right? Which is, again, design thinking is something which we adopted in our organization, which enables us, right? And lastly, collective intelligence, which is, again, collaboration. I feel today with all this technology disruptions, if you don't have a collective intelligence, if you don't know how to partner with each other's intelligence, it's not going to take you far. And it's important whether within the organization, how do you collaborate, or outside the organization, how do you collaborate to bring the best value to the patients in our case, or in customers in many other industries. So all this, and of course, one other important skill for specifically to our industry is science and business intelligence. That's a skill which we need, because without science skills, you cannot advance in your science, and it has to be a progressive science and advanced business skills, which is also an important area to focus. To do all of this, I see a digital can enable in all this skill transformation, and that's the advantage we have. Years back, all this is very important, but you didn't know how the digital or the technology can enable. Today, with technology, you can advance this, progress fast in all of this skill development, because technology can be an integrated part of all of this. I think that's what I look at when we looking at the digital when we look at the skill transformation and creating the skill ecosystem. All of these skills becomes super important for an organization, and we have stronger focus in these areas.
Great, thank you for that. In fact, there's some interesting research from Oxford Economics Global Talent 2021 that kind of mirrors your thinking within your organization. And they said these are going to be the skills in high demand over the next 5 to 10 years. Digital skills, which is essentially digital business skills, ability to work virtually, digital design skills. Then they talk about agile thinking skills, which is ability to consider and prepare for multiple scenarios, alternative thinking, as you talked about, or innovation, or dealing with complexity and ambiguity. And the third cluster of skills they spoke of is interpersonal and communication skills, co-creativity, relationship building, teaming, collaboration, like you called it, collective intelligence. Let's move to another very interesting subject, which is about creating one central repository for skills in the organization. And every company we know has 5 sources of information. Your company's own learning tool, which could be your LMS, the learning experience platform, your learning record store, which captures all data relating to your employees' learning activities, your recruiting tools, your third-party libraries, for example, Burning Glass, your content providers that you work with, Coursera, Skillsoft, whoever, and your company's own internal capability models, your sales capability model. You could have a leadership competency model. Now, a big challenge, Swati, faced by organizations is that they don't have a unified system of record for their team skills. And companies are gathering and building multiple skills databases, resulting in several skill taxonomies that do not match up. What initiatives are you taking to create one central repository for skills in your organization?
Nishya, it's a very important question and a very challenging thing to solve for. Because actually, if you look at it, we are kind of spoiled for choice. There are so many options available for the learners and even for the aggregators. I mean, when we are trying to put it together in a very comprehensive manner and in a relevant manner for the learners and the organization, it's not a very easy task. But what we've endeavored to do is we have created success profiles for every role. Every role in the organization has a success profile comprising of technical and behavioral competencies, which dial down to specific skills. So every role holder in the organization knows what do I need to do in order to be successful in my role. Now, once that ideal profile, that we call it ideal profile, that same document or that ideal profile, it's a dynamic one, is used for all talent decisions, whether it is hiring or it is developing or any kind of decisions. Coming back to how do we tie the resources available, internal, external, etc., in a way that is pertinent for the role holder and not confusing. What we do is we've done like we of course have a learning experience platform, but there is a comprehensive way in which we organize it. It's called a I learn. I mean, I learn is like, how putting the focus on the individual. While we have democratized learning and provided options which are, say, from Coursera or other, kind of courses available outside of Dr. Reddy's, internally also we curate a lot. And as you rightly said, given any organization which has been in standing for a long time, there are a lot of internal repository also. So we've created a taxonomy which is very integrated as well as segregated at the same time. So for example, if the learner specifically wanted to go and look at a learning or a skill gap to be addressed, they have to go to an academy, which will be there. And within the academy, there things available. Now they don't have to go through several clicks. It'll be a single click kind of a switch which leads them there. Now, what the learning team has an additional responsibility is to ensure that along with the SMEs, they are putting in filters and not ensuring that there is a kind of a binge learning happening. And I'm using the word binge learning because, you sometimes will just end up consuming things which are not very useful for you. So that kind of a, sort of a filter, sort filter kind of a skimming and scanning the environment for the right learning resources is a huge responsibility that the L&D department sort of dons. And they do it, of course, with the SMEs. When it lands on the learner, I think that is very important. We have to ensure that it is very simplified. You mentioned that, So if it is a very complex path, one, they may just start off with a lot of energy and gung-ho, but it just fizzles. Another is they might go a few steps, come back, dabble with a few things and not get the right ones. So ensuring that the learning journeys that I spoke to you about, saying that we have an ideal profile, we put them on a learning journey, having, sort of a periodic check on how it's progressing, what more do they need, is it being available for them? And in that continuous search and pursuit for the right learning resources which meet the learner needs and also the org's needs is what we endeavor to do. And given the pace of change that's happening, because there's so much of change happening, it becomes increasingly more difficult because every time you're churning new, so the versions of changes that happen and updated ones, keeping all of that in a very systematic manner becomes really key.
So let's move to three golden words of learning now, right? We've spoken about relevance. I think what your taxonomy does do is at least establish singular relevance.
Yeah.
And take away confusion. It's equally about the efficiency, right, of discovering the right recommended content that applies to a person's job role, be it behavioral or technical skills that have been mapped to the ideal profile. Let's move to application and impact. And we spoke about impact at the start of our conversation, that there are obviously ways that we have to ensure that we demonstrate that the money being spent is creating, bang for the buck. Let's move to Act 3 with that, and it's called Bridging the Skill Gap. So with specific focus, actually an emphasis on the application of technology to the learning agenda. And we know that technology has played a pivotal role and served us very meaningfully over the years, and especially during the pandemic. And HR technology and learning technology has moved from good to have to must have given the growing importance of productivity, employee experience, well-being, and skilling. Organizations are actively looking for a tech stack spanning HR tech, workplace tech, talent, and learning tech with a sophisticated integration framework, allowing knowledge to flow freely and unobstructed between systems and tools. And EdCast does this very interesting research called Learning Health Index every year. And according to EdCast's Learning Health Index 2021, 56% of the organizations in the healthcare and pharmaceutical sector report that they leverage a sophisticated suite of tools and technologies to streamline the flow of knowledge and provide learning at the point of need for the learner. Question to both of you. What specific technologies are you using to build an intelligent skilling ecosystem? And could you share how technology has enabled the skill transformation agenda in your organization? Let's start with you, Chela.
Great. I'll take the second part of your question first, and then I'll come back to what technologies is being leveraged. So technology certainly enabled the skill transformation. And just going back to the story, which your Act 1 and Act 2, what we spoke in terms of how the success is measured. And as I said, success is measured with future readiness as well as the current, how are you impacting the current business? And hence it has to be linked to the organization goals. So that's the first part. Second part is in terms of what are the skill which is being focused towards creating the skill ecosystem. I was talking about 6 skills in the form of intelligence, how that 6 skills can be enabled through technology. So that's the part I wanted to cover here. The technology, minus technology, you need those 6 skills for sure. Innovation skills or science skills, or we're talking about collective intelligence or design thinking for problem solving, which is very important for any organization and every organization. And we wanted to focus on that, and we have been focusing on that because our company is built on innovation for 4 decades. But now with technology, how are you going to integrate these two and then enable yourself in a manner that you are just not adopting, but you are pioneering in some of these areas where you want to really be ahead of competition, ahead of the curve. And that's where we see technology is enabling us. And a few examples I'll share. There are 2 ways to approach this, and we take a hybrid approach. There are internal skill set to design certain technology solutions, and we leverage on that, right? At the same time, there are ready solutions available, whether different tools or applications or softwares, which you could avail that and then get things going. Be it as latest technology in IoTs or artificial intelligence or cloud computing. So there are a lot of technologies can be adopted. But at this point in time, from the skill, specific to skill I'm talking, of course, the learning management system, what we have, which also has a hybrid of internal design, which enables us to just not tracking. We don't want to use this for just a data generation, because then it means just that, you have a tool which gives you data. But what decision you take based on the data you have, and how do you enable people to be connected to this digital technologies to upskill them by various advancement which technology has brought in. So that's where we focused on, and which has helped us, be it as interactive learning modules or even some predictive analysis through some of the technologies which we are trying, and which of course a lot of adoption is still happening as I talk to you. But certainly the video interactive sessions which we do for skilling and upskilling and also reskilling, right, which has been very powerful, and that's where we see the advantage of having technology, right? Again, as I said, the 3 A's which I talked about: adoption, adaption, and aborting, which is very important, because unless you unlearn, you won't relearn. And that's where an important mindset for people to say things have worked without technology, and now you wanted to get into the emerging technologies, so you need to unlearn and then say that there is a greater possibility here, and that belief has to shift for behavior to shift, right? So there has been tremendous focus on creating that kind of a mindset as we build the skills. And of course, being in pioneer in biosimilars, and we had some great early launches of innovations. And with the you need certainly digital to play a role to continue to be in that space, and that's where, as an organization, we are focusing on, not specific to certain individuals to be focusing here, whereas to create an environment of how the digital transformation can enable the whole organization in the new ways of doing everything we do, right? Not delinking and taking few projects and put into that digital space.
So Swati, I'm going to come to you. Sorry, Chala. Just in the interest of time, you have Swati 2 minutes to give me a $1 million answer.
Yeah.
What I'm looking for, give me specific examples of the use of technology in learning specifically. So are you using AR, VR as an, as
we are using.
I'm going to leave the floor to you. So specific examples and what utility it's brought to your learning agenda.
Yes. So we are using augmented and virtual reality. We have got augmented virtual reality studios. So what happens is it has crunched our induction time, because they are able to, work with equipments, processes before they hit the shop floor. So that is a very significant ease. Second, we're also using tools such as Miro, which helps us, have very creative discussions that are happening. We have tied it to our classroom. For example, we have virtual classrooms. We also have MS Teams. We have, those things which are tied up to our learning experience platform. So we are able to, do that also. Then whenever we are hosting any kind of events which are related to learning, so there we have an interactive, sort of a studio which is there, which is available. So digital studio is available, and we have our internal leaders coming, recording sessions, and then there's a 3D kind of an effect being provided. All this has been developed internally, and it has really helped. We also, what we've done is gamification. We've got leaderboards, badges, etc. So everybody is like, sparring and saying, okay, where are we going, and how are we heading? Simulations have been incredibly useful, especially for the sales force also. So, we have created small bite-sized simulations also, which don't take up too much of time, but they're very hands-on. And we also have something like, how to bring about increased connectedness. So people can share their bites, learning bites can be shared for. So there's a lot of peer learning that happens. So essentially, Nisha, I'll just like to put it this way, that all our learning experience and employee experience at Dr. Reddy's is anchored around three things. Whether the technology is solving for providing joy. Second, is it making people more connected? And third, are they solving for increased efficiency? So these are the three terms that we use. And we try to see whether technology is helping in these three ways.
Thank you, Swati. Couldn't be a better way to conclude this conversation. I'd like to thank my panelists for this enriching conversation that we've had today. Stay well, stay healthy, keep learning. Signing off now.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing knowledge-rich content with the audience. And with this, we come to an end of day one of the Next Tech HR Summit India 2022. We sincerely hope you enjoyed the array of sessions that we've curated for day. For day two, we will be back with many more exciting conversations around harnessing the power of HR technology to facilitate multiple futures, creating the next generation learning ecosystem, rewriting the law of talent attraction with data analytics and AI, the big picture of 2022, what the future would look like, and many more lighthouse conversations await your presence. So see you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. sharp. Thank you so much.